Hey there drone fans, Rick here again with another review, and today I'd like to discuss the two controller options available for the brand new DJI Mini 3 Pro drone and which of these controller options might be perfect for you. Now the Mini 3 Pro is a near perfect drone, and I've talked about it a lot. It really gives you everything you need in a modern drone to really enjoy the hobby and take some incredible footage. It'll record 4K at 60 frames a second as far as video, and it takes 48 megapixel pictures. It'll fly really far away. It's got a rock solid connection of both the controllers. It's got all kinds of safety features built in. If the battery gets low, it flies back home. It's got crash avoidance. It's got APAS. So pretty much everything you want in a modern drone is inside the Mini 3 Pro, and it still weighs less than 250 grams, so that's an easy decision. The challenge is, DJI, when they released this drone, for the first time, decided to release it as a standalone drone. So if you already owned an RCN1 controller, you could buy just the drone and use the controller you already had. They also sold it with the RCN1 if you needed a controller, and they introduced the brand new smart controller, the DJI RC, which is a brand new product from them. So you really have three choices: the drone in this controller, or the drone in this controller. So it can be confusing as to which of these two controllers makes sense. Well, they both have advantages and disadvantages. Now, I'm gonna kind of lean in here a little bit and say, if you can do it, this is the one you want. And I'll explain that in a little bit. But the RCN1 is a perfect controller. The only difference really between the two of them, the electronics are the same, transmissions are the same, everything about the controllers is exactly the same. Where it gets interesting is depending on what device you use over here, it can get a little bit tougher. So with the RCN1, you're basically getting the controller guts, the brains of the controller, the connection topology, the O3 technology between the controller and the drone, so they're gonna fly exactly the same. The difference, though, essentially is you've got an Android operating system built in here with a display, so it's almost like having a smart device built into the controller that's perfectly matched with the internal electronics. The operating system has been tuned for it, the connections are internal, so you've got a display device that can handle all of the advanced features that are available in the application. Here, those same features are available, but it's hugely dependent on what you connect it to. Now, normally, most folks are going to connect it to a phone. This pops up, you put your phone in there, there's a connection between that and the controller, and you're essentially using the phone to run the application, and then all the brains of the controller sends information to the application so you can see where you're flying on the screen, your telemetry information is there, your battery levels are there. So essentially you're building a controller, a hybrid controller, between the actual controller brains and whatever display device you're using. Now the advantage of using this is that with this one you've got a fixed screen size. With this one, you can get adapters that snap on here really easily and put a gigantic tablet on there. So if you're looking for a giant screen, this is the way to go. The challenge with using an external device, there's many challenges. For starters, this is a more complicated way to get up in the air, because when you open up your case, you unfold the drone, you power it up, you unfold the controller. If you've got a large tablet, you've got to put the tablet holder on, you've got to connect up the cable. You have to make sure that you have the latest version of the application on your tablet. You have to make sure the tablet's charged. You have to make sure this is charged, the cable's good. So there's a lot going on over here before you get up in the sky. I'm not saying it doesn't work, and I'm not saying you should rush either, but if this is the way to go if you want a larger screen, but you got to deal with all that stuff. And there have been more than one time where I've been out in the field and either a cable went bad on me, or the phone wasn't charged, my fault, or I've got an older version of the application or the firmware and I had to do something out there in the field. So this takes a little bit more work. This one, everything's inside. It's sort of that old Ragu commercial where it's in there, everything's in there. You buy this, you basically spin it up, it connects to the drone, and you just start flying. So the other advantages are that when you do firmware updates to this, it's an integrated update. So it'll update the application, it'll update the operating system internally, it'll update the drone, it'll update the batteries if needed. So it's a simple update process. You also have one device to charge here. You plug this into a USB-C charger, and you can charge this in the drone, and you're off and flying. There's no concern about you get out in the field and the phone's only 30%. What am I gonna do? I gotta get a battery bank and charge it up. With this one, everything's built in. Another key difference is that, unfortunately, the applications that control these drones, especially the Mini 3 Pro, the new DJI Fly application, is a very sophisticated application and requires a really big horsepower, if you will, or processor inside the device you're connecting up. So you'll find that a lot of older phones either won't work, or you'll have choppy video, or you'll have issues with connectivity. You don't want to deal with that when you're out in the field, and you're going to constantly be worrying about, gee, is my phone up to specs when they update the DJI Fly app? Because sometimes they'll update it with a feature that only works on the latest high-powered processors on the newer phones and newer tablets. So you've got a concern right there. Now, as far as technology goes, the other thing is the live feedback from the drone to the actual controller. This one uses OcuSync 3, which will give you a live feedback of 1080p at 30 frames a second. That's a lot of video being sent back over that O3 connection. The display device you're using has to read that information, turn it into video, and display it on the screen. That can be a challenge for some of the modern phones. You can have some real issues there. So knowing I've got everything I need in here that'll handle that and will be updated on the fly is a really good thing. Now, the last thing I'll mention is the fact that inside the actual application, you can do things like caching video. So when you're flying, you can cache the video from the feed coming back internally to the storage on the unit. With this one, I can add an SD card. I can put a 64 or 128 gigabyte card in there. Megabyte card, gee, I'm getting old. Anyway, gigabyte card in there, and I can store all that caching on that card. I can pull the card out, I can use it in my computer, or I can connect it directly, or even over Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, and I've got plenty of expandable storage there. If I'm caching video to my phone, it's actually being cached internally to whatever storage is available on my phone, so it's eating up my internal storage, which means there's less space in there for contacts, pictures, videos, whatever I want to use. There's less space in there for applications and other things, so I have a limited amount of space here. Here I can just keep popping in SD cards, so it gives me a lot of expandability. The last thing I'll mention, and this is something you really have to consider, is that this is a multifunction device. So you're using it as your camera, your phone, your GPS driving directions, your Instagram, your TikToks, all the applications that are running there. A lot of those applications, when you turn them off, they don't turn off. They're still running in the background. So you've got a lot of horsepower from the engine inside here being used up by those applications. When you're not realizing it, it's almost like a vampire draining attention away from the processor. That can all affect how the DJI Fly application works, and it can really limit what you can do. Here, there's nothing running on there. So DJI has locked down that version of Android over here to only run the DJI Fly application, and they fine-tuned the Android to take out all the background stuff that works normally in an Android system, to not worry about wasting those cycles on sort of errant programs in the background that are just eating up processor time. It's a really refined system that's tailor-built really to fly the drone and do nothing else. And that's why I know a lot of people are wondering, why can't I load an app on it? The reason is they don't want you messing with that operating system because it's fine-tuned for the drone and it does a phenomenal job of flying. Now, to be fair, I use both of these controllers all the time. This screen is big enough for me, it's bright enough for me, it's about 1,000 nits, it works great most of the time. There are times though where I'm out in the field and I want a little bigger tablet, maybe I'm shooting some commercial work and I need to make sure the framing is right, the shadows are right and all the rest of it. I need a little bigger tablet, so I do use both of these, but honestly, 90–95% of the time, this is what I'm flying with. And that's why I'm saying these are perfect together. This is a great option, and if you want to use a tablet, absolutely go this direction, but these are perfect together. So my recommendation is, if you're looking at the Mini 3 Pro as your next drone, go this direction. And the best part is, this controller can fly other drones. So if you got the Mavic 3, boom. Air 2S, boom. Who knows what's coming next? Boom, right? So you've got a controller that can work with a bunch of drones. This one can too, but the beauty here is you're buying an accessory that allows you to expand beyond the Mini 3 Pro if you decide later on to upgrade or get a bigger drone or whatever you're going to do. So they're both great options, and I know it sounds like I'm kind of splitting hairs here, but if you're flying with a tablet, you need this one. If you're trying to not, go crazy with budget, this one, right? It's going to be a good choice for you. This one's going to give you a lot more functionality, a much smoother experience up in the air, an easier way to get out the door and start flying. So you can tell which way I'm leaning. I kind of said that early on. I think this is the perfect combination, not a bad alternative in addition to it. So that's kind of where I'm at, and it's up to you to decide what works best for you and what fits into your budget. But for me, I think wonderful drone. Whichever one of these you use, you're going to have so much fun putting this thing up in the air and flying around, just looking at all the beauty out there that nature has to offer. And believe me, I say this all the time. If you're thinking about getting into this hobby, don't wait. If you're on the fence, get off the fence. Pick up a drone. You've got plenty of flying time before the heavy winter sets in. You can even fly in the winter, but believe me, when spring comes and all the flowers start blooming and the birds show up and the trees are going into bloom, putting a drone up over a lake or a forest or anywhere you want to fly it is a magical experience that will really change your life. I can't stress that enough. It's a wonderful, relaxing hobby to have. The kids are going to love it. The wife's going to love it. You're out in the fresh air. It's a wonderful thing to do. But either way, you can't go wrong with either of these controllers. Just have a lot of fun with your drones, and thanks an awful lot for watching. Now, if you have any questions about anything I've covered, drop those in the comments below and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button down there and join the Drone Valley family. I have so much content coming up this year that you're really going to want to see. And we have some giveaways coming up as well on the channel. We always do that around the holidays, so you want to be here for those for sure. Anyway, that's all I had for today. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, happy flying.